Welcome back to 4th grade Math Corner. This video is going to be on Module 6, Lesson 5. We are skipping doing a video on Lesson 4. It is an extension of Lesson 5 using a tape diagram rather than an area model, which we are using today. Our learning target is I will use an area model to decompose tenths into hundredths. So what we're going to do today is we're going to model tenths on an area model, and we're going to decompose them, which means break them apart, into hundredths, which are the next place on our place value chart. So if I were to make another place value chart, and I had hundreds, tens, ones, in previous videos we learned that you can break ones into pieces called tenths. And today we're going to learn that the next place on the place value chart would be breaking those 10 into 10, which would be hundredths. Notice it's just the same as going from 1 to 10, from 10 to hundreds. We are just adding the suffix at the end to show that they are smaller than a whole. So let's start by representing 1/10 on our area model. If you were to draw this at home, you would just need to draw a square, cut it into 10 pieces. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, which represents one whole. But I want to model 1/10. So here I'm going to color in one of my 10 pieces. I could also write this, I'll write it a little smaller, as 0 and 1 in the tenths place. To decompose this, I would have to cut it up. We have learned that on a place value chart, to move to the next place, it's either 10 more or 10 less. When we're cutting or decomposing, we are cutting them into 10 more. There's 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So what I did is I had my 1/10 and I cut them, each of the 10, into 10 pieces. So I'm going to multiply by 10. What I did to the bottom, what I did to the whole, I also did to the one that I colored. So I times that by 10 as well. I now have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 pieces total. And the pieces that are colored are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This can be written as a decimal, 0 wholes and 10 hundredths. We read it in the place that we end. This is 1/10 because we end in the tenths place. This is 10 hundredths because it ends in the hundredths place. We could also show this going in the opposite direction. Instead of decomposing, we could compose. So let's say I started with 10 hundredths colored. When I decompose, I'm putting them into equal groups. And putting into equal groups is dividing. We're sharing into equal groups. So I'm going to divide this into a group, which means I have 10 pieces in each group. I'm going to do the same for all of them. Now, to find out how many groups I have, I count my circles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I put 10 pieces into each group, and that leaves me 10 divided by 10. I have now one large group out of 10 total groups. I have turned 10 hundredths into 1/10. let's switch to a harder fraction. Mrs. Iacono, can you scroll down to the hundredths? I'm sorry, up to the hundredths. There you go. I just need one of those. We're going to try some more difficult fractions. Those were easy fractions. If I had 3/10, I could decompose them into hundredths. Here, let's try 25 hundredths. So here's a hundredths area model. I have one that's already drawn for me. If you were to draw it, you would draw a square, cut it into 10 columns and 10 rows. 10 times 10 is 100 pieces total. To color these in, I would have to color in 10, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 hundredths. Mrs. Iacono in the last lesson taught us to expand our tenths. We could also expand our hundredths. If we look at our drawing, this could be turned into tenths. Just like our tenths columns, we now have here 2 tenths, and here we have 5 of the smaller hundredths. Together, we have 25 hundredths, but I could also decompose this. Sorry, I want to write it as a decimal too, 25 hundredths, to show why we have 25 here. We already said that this is like having 2 tenths and 5 hundredths. I need them to have common denominators. I cannot add tenths and hundredths. They have to be the same. To make one of them the same, I could just times this by 10. What I did to the bottom, I also did to the top, times 10. So these 2 tenths become 20 hundredths. And then I just add 20 hundredths plus 5 hundredths equals 25 hundredths. In a decimal, we need to make sure that the tenths are in the tenths place. On the place value chart, we have 0 holes, and we have 2 tenths in the tenths place, but then we have 5 smaller pieces, which are hundredths. I need to make sure that when I write them in standard form, I have the hundredths in the hundredths place and the tenths in the tenths place. Although they can be broken up into 25 hundredths, we cannot have 2 digits in one place. Let's try another tricky one. A lot of people get tricked when there's a single digit hundredths. So we're going to make an example using 3 hundredths. 3 hundredths, if you notice, I have on my area model just 3 colored in. So looking, you would think, how many tenths are there? Well, there's none. There's 0 tenths. How many hundredths are there? There are 3 hundredths. These are a little trickier writing in decimal form because I need to remember that if I have nothing in a place, it needs a placeholder. So, oh, I had erased my, place value chart. We have the decimal there. These were hundreds, tens, ones, tenths, hundredths. So now I need to make sure to write the decimal correctly. I again have no ones. I also have no tens or no hundreds, but I don't need placeholders because I'm already saying no holes. Then I look at my tenths. I have no tenths. I have to put that as a placeholder in order to get my number to end in the hundredths. I have 3 hundredths. So when I write this as a decimal, I need to write 0 and 0 tenths to get 3 in the hundredths. I would read this as 3 hundredths or 0 and 3 hundredths. If you have any questions, please contact us.